Okay, critical reading is our lecture for today. Notice I have these unhappy children on the first slide. Why? Because you all hate critical reading. It means you actually have to read slowly and think about what you're reading. When you read something and your eyes are just looking at the words but your brain isn't absorbing it, you're not reading critically and you're not going to remember those things. You're not engaging with the text. It's not helpful to you to just speed read something just to say you read it, but not actually engage with the text and make sure you understand it. So these are some tips for how to become a better critical reader, which you can apply certainly to this class, but to all of your classes as well. So why do you need to read critically? It makes you smarter. Studies have shown that reading actually increases your intelligence more than just about anything else you could do. So it makes you smarter to read more and to understand what you're reading. Serves as models. So if I assign you an essay, it's not just because I felt like it, it's because we're going to talk about that essay. You can look at that essay and use it to help you become a better writer. Use it when you sit down to write your own papers. So understanding how an essay I assign you works, how all the pieces come together to create a whole complete essay is going to help you write your own essays and make them better. And all of that goes into improving your grades. So our discussions, we've had some discussions on the readings already. I want them to get better. Just like I want your writing to get better throughout this semester, I want your ability to discuss the readings and analyze the readings to get better. So suggestions I have for you. Take brief notes on the readings. Bring those to class for our discussions. So what should you be looking for when you're reading an essay? Things that strike you as interesting. If you go, oh, well, that's cool, I didn't know that, or, that's an interesting thing that this author brought up, that's the kind of thing that you want to mark. Questions that you have, if you're confused about something, or if you feel like the author didn't give enough information about something, make a note of that. Write a little question next to where you were confused. Criticisms. You don't have to like the essays that I assign you, but if you don't like them, you have to tell me why. You also just can't say, oh, this was good, I liked it. Explain to me, what did you like about it? What did you not like about it? Because all of this goes into the critical reading process. Similar personal experiences. So if you're reading an essay and you go, oh wow, well this thing that he's talking about, that's happened to me before, or oh, I felt like that before. That's another thing that adds to your understanding of the essay and adds to the discussions that we can have about the essay. So you want to jot these things down, either directly on the essay or somewhere else, some notes that you can pull out when we're having discussions. And you want to use that when we discuss things. It's going to help you remember the essay better. It's going to help you contribute to our discussions in a much more productive way. And all of this is going to go into your participation grade. Alright, so here's a myth. Students sometimes buy these expensive, immaculate books and think, oh, I need to leave it in this same condition. You don't. Vandalize your books. Circle things, underline things, write notes in the margins, use those highlighters. The amount that you'll get back if you sell it to the bookstore or Amazon, if it's in perfect, pristine condition versus if it's got writing in it, is very, very small. So for a loss of $4, you can have a much more productive semester where you're actually engaging with your text instead of just glancing at it. So I highly, highly recommend that you be writing directly in your book. If you're not comfortable with doing that, again, taking notes is acceptable, or making copies of the essays and then writing on those copies. Those are other alternative ways if you really don't want to write in your book. So this is a picture of someone who is critically reading, writing notes in the margin, underlining things, putting questions in here. This is a really good example of someone who is engaged with the text and engaged in the critical reading process. And here's another example. If you like highlighters, go for it. Bust out some different colors. Pretend you're in kindergarten again, and you can, use different colors and make it colorful. But again, underlining things, highlighting things that are important, and then using notes in the margin to help you remember what you have to say about those things. This is extremely helpful for becoming a better critical reader, for remembering the material, and for having us have better discussions. Other ways to become a better critical reader. Look up unfamiliar words. Keep a vocabulary list in your notes. So if you read a word and you've never heard of it before and you look it up, well, you're that much smarter now because now you know that word. Now you can use that word. I've learned a lot of new interesting words by being a critical reader and looking those words up, and then I can use those words in my essays, and so that makes me a better writer. So this goes hand in hand, better reading and better writing. Cultural references are the same thing. So a cultural reference usually is the name of a person, place, or event, or just a thing that has to do with a particular time period or a particular place in the world. And so if you're not familiar with it, then you're not really understanding the text. So I've got this little cartoon here. Let's break this down and analyze it and see if we can figure out what this means. So where do you think the guy on the left is from? What does he look like? So he looks like a cowboy. Most people are automatically going to say America or Texas. So when we think of cowboys, we usually think of Texas. And I might be wrong about this, but I think Texas and Argentina are the only places that are famous for having cowboys still. So probably we could rule out Argentina. This guy looks like a Texan. What about the guy on the right? So most people look and can figure out European. If we look at the wine, the beret, which is the name of that hat he's wearing, just the overall look, hopefully you can figure out this guy is a stereotype of someone from France, probably specifically someone from Paris. So what are they talking about here? Well, the Texan is saying feet, 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 and the Parisian is saying meters, meters, meters. So what is this argument about? Hopefully you know that this is about using or not using the metric system. So the metric system is used, again, I believe, by every other country in the world except America. We don't want to change for some reason. We're sticking to our feet. And the rest of the world thinks we're crazy and thinks we have a really stupid, outdated way of measuring things. So that's what this is about. If you didn't know that, if you saw this cartoon and had no idea what it meant, you could Google feet versus meters and find out about that. So this is what I mean when I say look up unfamiliar cultural references, because if someone was talking about this in an essay and you didn't understand the argument and you don't look it up, you're not going to get it. You're going to finish that essay and you're going to be like, I didn't understand it. Well, you didn't understand it because you didn't look up the information that you didn't understand. So that's your fault, not the essay's. So context is another thing that you want to think about. Context means, what do you know about this situation? What kind of clues are you given? So I'm going to read this little excerpt and then we're going to try and figure out what's going on here. 2 square biscuits of baked wheat, animal fat, and glucose from faraway exotic Bergen, Norway. Pale in color and fragrant in smell. I bit into one. Lord, who would have thought? I never suspected Norwegian cuisine was the best in the world. They made a granular paste that was enchantment to the tongue and mouth, and when I swallowed, my stomach had one thing to say. Hallelujah! All right, so what can we right off the bat tell about our character? If you're looking for it, you'll notice some things. First of all, look at how he spells the word color. There's a U in there. Who does that? Well, that's the British way of spelling things. So we know this person is at least not American because of the way he's spelling this. So we'll talk more about that later. But yeah, we can pick that up. What else can we tell about this character? He's probably religious. He says, "Lord, who would have thought?" And he says, "Hallelujah." So we can figure that out too. What can we figure out about his taste in food? So look at the description of this food that he's eating. This is not fancy cuisine. This is biscuits, which again, if we're taking into account that this is more of a British type language, biscuit doesn't mean what we think of it meaning in America. Biscuit means cookies in European vocabulary. So these are 2 cookies. They're made of wheat and animal fat and glucose, which maybe it sounds good, but it doesn't sound that great. Why does he think this food is so good that he's raving about it? What does that make us think about him and his experience with good food? He probably doesn't have much experience with good food. So these are little things that we can figure out just by looking at this small excerpt. Now, just to let you know what's going on here, this is an excerpt from the book The Life of Pi. So our character is Indian. India once owned by the British, so that's where we get our British biscuits and color with the U. The other thing to know about our character is he's stranded on a life raft in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. He hasn't eaten in days, and he's found these cookies in the supplies of the life raft. So, of course, they're going to taste delicious to him. So, knowing the context changes what you think about a reading. So, pay attention to those things. You want to use the clues that you're given to make sure you understand what's actually happening. A lot of you probably read this excerpt and went, "Oh, well, he just really likes these cookies. He really likes this Norwegian food." But you have to know what else is going on. Otherwise, you're not going to do a good job of understanding what a piece of writing is trying to tell you. So pay attention to those clues. So other ways we can be good critical readers. Thinking about who's the audience. Is this for young people or old people? Is this for more educated people or for anyone? Is this more scientific or more for people who maybe are not as experienced with whatever the topic is? And you can tell by looking for clues. And we'll talk more about audience as the weeks go on. What is the author's goal? So that means, why did the author write this? What did they want you to get out of it? And we'll talk more about that as well. How is the author trying to achieve that goal? So you want to look at what kind of points is the author making. So things that go into how is the author trying to achieve his or her goal are things like organization. How is the essay laid out? Examples and evidence that are given to support the argument that the author is making. The sources that are used. The tone the author takes. Again, this goes into, is this more serious or more laid back? Is this more like technical and scientific or more for anyone? Emotion. Is the author using any emotional examples or language to try and get you to feel an emotional connection with the essay? And reputation. Is the author an expert on this? Is he trying to convince you that you should listen to him because of who he is and what he knows on the subject? So just to kind of go back over this, you want to take notes on things brought up in class and on things that you notice in your readings. You want to keep all your notes together from readings and class discussions. And you want to use that to help you write your paper. Now, you don't have to take notes on everything in the readings or everything that we talk about in class, but anytime something strikes you as interesting, anytime you hear something that clarifies a concept you were confused about. Those are the kinds of things that you really want to be paying attention to. This is all going to go into better understanding of what you read, better discussions, which again equals better participation grades, which is a plus. And it's going to make it easier for you to understand what we're talking about and write your papers. So here's your activity. So I've posted a copy of an essay on Blackboard. I want you to print it out and vandalize it. So you can use highlighters, you can use a pen, you can use crayons, I don't care what you do. But I want you to underline things, circle things, write notes in the margins. Go back over the previous slides if you're trying to figure out what should you be looking for. Go back over that to see the things that I mentioned that you should be looking for when you read an essay and that you should be taking notes on. And then the next thing you're going to do is on a separate sheet of paper, or you can do this on the back of the essay that you've printed out. I want you to answer all of these three things that I've put here with these little bullet points. So I want you to come up with at least one question that you have about this essay, meaning something you were confused about, or maybe just a question that you'd like to ask the author if you could. Then I want you to write a short reaction to the essay, so about 5 to 7 sentences, and I want you to talk about things like, what points did you agree and disagree with that the author brought up? What did you like and not like about this essay? What could the author have done to make the argument more persuasive? So I want you to just give me your general reaction to the essay, specifically focusing on these 3 questions, and explain why. Don't just say, oh, I liked it. Say what you liked and why. And then finally, find at least one cultural reference and one vocabulary word, so one of each, in this essay that were unfamiliar to you. Look them up and give a sentence or give a 1-sentence explanation or definition of each. So vocabulary words are easy. There's lots of big fancy words in this essay. Pick one of them, look it up, and then write the definition. Cultural references, you might be familiar with everyone and everything that's being talked about. If not, certainly pinpoint something that you're not familiar with and look it up. If you are, if you're one of those people who's just very into cultural references and you know everything, pick one that you think the average reader might not be familiar with or might be less familiar with than some of the other ones, and tell me who is that person or what is that thing or that place or that concept that's brought up. So this is your activity. This is going to be due in our next class period. We'll talk about it as a class. If you have questions come up as you're doing this activity, shoot me an email and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. So this concludes our lecture on critical reading.